Hello everyone, hope you're doing well. Today we're going to have a look at the changelog for Update Red Skies, obviously the major update that has just come out for War Thunder. There's a lot of stuff in it, a ton of different changes and a ton of different additions to the game. The best way I would probably say that this patch is, or the best summary for this patch, is there's a lot of interesting vehicles, but the mechanics are probably the more interesting stuff, and also on top of it, this sets us up for a bunch of interesting updates going forward, since it does change the game in specific ways, allowing certain vehicles to come in. We'll talk about that more in probably some future videos. Anyway, let's get into the changelog. There is a bunch of stuff that I'm not going to cover because I've either covered it in previous videos or, to be honest with you, it isn't something to really look at or isn't game changing at all. So anyway, let's get started. The first thing we're going to have a look at is location and mission updates. Obviously, they added in Drowned City and Red Desert. We did separate videos from the dev server on these maps if you want to have a look around them. They haven't changed since the dev server. I'll probably give some updated thoughts on Red Desert once I get some gameplay on it. Unfortunately, I haven't seen it yet, so we'll have to see what goes on. Also, there's a bunch of changes to pre-existing maps, so animations for distant windmills and pump jacks have been added, which I suppose is nice. Always lovely to see more visuals. Visual issues of snow has been fixed for the location Stalingrad tank battle. Not entirely sure what that means. Obviously, the biggest thing on stuff like snow maps, such as Stalingrad and also the Finnish map, is the fact that you can shoot through it, meaning that it's really easy to be able to shoot the enemy while they're not able to see you. And this is a bit of a problem, and has always been a problem on snow maps. It was one of the biggest issues with Volkalamsk, especially since a lot of it was from range. So I'm wondering if it's talking about that. If it's talking about something else, then hopefully it has improved. Airfields at the higher rank will now be protected by modern aircraft anti-aircraft guns, including missile weaponry. In aircraft RB missions, when an integrated system of different fields for battles at different ranks was received in recent updates. So pretty much depending on what BR you are playing on, you will have different AA around your airfields. So this goes all the way to the top, where you have Sergeant Yorks and Rolands actually protecting airfields. One thing to note is the Rolands on the dev server didn't really track, they just went in a straight line. They track now, so they're a lot more deadly and a lot more aggressive. We're going to have to see how this pans out over the next few weeks. I think this is a positive change overall. I understand that a lot of people are worried about people airfield camping and stuff like that. I don't think that's a huge deal, especially since missiles are very prevalent at the higher echelons. The following missions now have the mechanics of different airfields for battles at different ranks. So you have Sicily, Korea, Ruhr, Tunisia, Zhengzhou, and the China Civil War in 1946. So this is obviously a set of maps which are pretty prevalent at every rank, so probably the more popular ones. We'll have to see how it affects them, and I suppose if the system is a success, then they will add it to others. What is also interesting about all of these maps is they are pretty much the old style maps, apart from some versions of Sicily. The old style maps before, like, you have that center mass of artilleries, AAs and pillboxes in the center of the map, fighting each other with the AI planes around. These are the maps which are more standard from before, so it's interesting to see they've picked these. They've also done an overall rework on Pacific Hidden Base, which is one of my favorite arcade maps, so we'll have to see what that looks like. Then we have some changes to Enduring Confrontation. So the Sicily mission is back in rotation, so they brought it back. The mission is based on the greatly reworked EC logics, for which the other EC missions will have transferred soon. The full list of changes you may find in previous changelogs during the testing of Sicily. Additional changes are: mission is rotated 90 degrees in order for every team to have its own part on the land and the sea. Every team has its own carrier. Mission size is increased from 7x7 to 8x8 squares. These square sides are 8,192 meters. That's a pretty big map. Modern AA systems, including missiles, have been added to airfield protection in high-rank battles. The Sicily mission was tested quite a lot in the past, so hopefully it is one of the better ones for EC. Definitely looking forward to it. It was also one which was very prevalent when it came to RBEC. New mission, the Denmark, is available in custom battles only. Its size is 128 by 128, and they do have a known bug on it. AI ships may ram and get stuck in each other. So my guess is once it gets tested through custom battles, it will then be added to the rotation. Migration to this logic will occur in stages during this major update. So modern AA systems, including missiles, have been added to airfield protection in high-rank battles in the following missions: so Maginot Line, Tunisia, Zhengzhou or Changshu, and China Civil War 1946. So not a surprise, just following on from the realistic changes. We'll have to see how this new AA affects high-rank simulator. They've added a bunch of things for ground vehicles in the form of damage model characteristics and also weapon changes, but generally a lot of them focus around either volumetric armor, which we know is coming to a bunch of vehicles, if not all of them at some point, and also the shells for high ranks as well for certain vehicles. So the aiming algorithm for semi-automatic missiles has been improved. The new algorithm takes into account movement of the vehicle and target much better, with improved accuracy and without swinging off the trajectory, both in automatic and manual modes. So the algorithm works for all SAM SPAAs with semi-automatic guidance, as well as for any ATGM launched from the ground or from helicopters. So pretty much it takes into account the realistic path of a ATGM. If you want to see what it's talking about, it's based on the firing point of the ATGM in the first place, so something like a Warrior or something like a Dardo, for example, which has its ATGMs off to the side. What it'll do is it'll swing in instead of just doing a gradual motion to the center, and therefore it'll have to overcorrect itself. It gets overcorrected and then it has to overcorrect itself again before it starts going straight. It's actually pretty cool and also realistic. It's nice to see. I'm glad that they added it. The limit for launching missiles on the go has been removed for the Saddam Mistral, so you can move around and fire those wonderful missiles at planes. And then protection analysis is now able to show overpressure damage effects. This is going to be very important because at least recently over this last little update area, overpressure is kind of ridiculous. There might be some of the clips that I show in the video here where overpressure is just killing stuff where it definitely shouldn't be. I got killed in my Churchill Mark III by 60-kilo bombs that landed maybe 20 meters away from me by an A6-0, so that's a bit of a problem, and I'm feeling like they're overperforming a little bit, so it'd be nice to see how they get affected by stuff. They've also added some physically correct tracks for a bunch of things, so all the Panther series of vehicles apart from the Panther II, that's including the Jagdpanther and the Volkswagen Jagdpanther and the Tiger H and E, the Panther Dauphine as well, or the Dauphiné, the CM11 gets its correct tracks, Heavy Tank number 6, and also the T5. So basically the Panthers, the Tigers, and also the CM11, which is just in there. Then also we had a bunch of changes for the USSR when it comes to their shells. So the T90A, its first shell to research at rank 1 has been changed from the 3BM22 to the 3BM42, and then its rank 4 shell in its modifications has been changed to the 3BM46 instead of the 3BM42M. I believe the 3BM42M has kind of disappeared from the game right now, which is kind of interesting. So yeah, It's just kind of gone. I don't really know why, but it's been replaced with better shells. So this is obviously an attempt to try and balance the USSR at high ranks. They've been having a bit of a tough time of it, it seems, but the main thing with them is they're going to get a huge buff right now, and that means a lot of the statistics that we're going to see over the next few weeks are completely useless because of the fact that only USSR has got a high-ranking MBT, and nobody else has a new high-ranking MBT, so therefore all of the players who play a lot are going to rush to the USSR to get that new vehicle because there's no other vehicles available for really anybody else at the high ranks. So yeah, you're going to see that. We already saw on the first day where there was about 260 people queuing for the USSR and nobody queuing for anybody else. This is just how this goes every time. We saw it last year when they added the T-72B3 and the T-72B upgraded variants, and we're going to see it again. So, and same with the Leopard 2A6 as well. The T-80U also, the shells, it got the same replacement as the T-90A, so its first rank 1 shell is the 3BM42, and the upgraded is the 3BM46. Then the T-72B3, it actually gets a slightly better shell, so at rank 1, the 3BM42 again, and then at rank 4, the shell that it gets is the 3BM60, which is the new shell, which is coming to the T-80 BVM. So yeah, that's going to be quite nice. It should be a pretty good vehicle. Should be a pretty good shell to use. It's very, very good. So we'll have to see how it affects those vehicles. The Leopard 2A6 and SDRV-122B PLSS, they've actually removed the balancing reduction of the rate of fire. So if you didn't know, a while back, the 2A6 and the SDRV-122B, they got their reloads increased basically for balance reasons, and now with more vehicles in the game, with more deadly rounds, especially from the USSR, they have removed that. They've also increased the Beata 11.0, which is pretty cool. The Leclerc S1 and S2 have lost their thermal images for their commanders, which is very sad, but they've been changed to IR night vision devices, so that's obviously going to affect them in night battles and also spotting stuff in general. The M48 Super, the physically correct tracks have been temporarily revoked. Again, I feel kind of bad for the Super. It keeps getting annihilated by these changes. The Type 74 series, so the F and the G and the standard one, their mantlet armor now consists of voluminous armor, so volumetric armor basically. Nice to see that moving forward. The whole M60 series in the game as well has voluminous armor on its turret, and then the 2A4 and the 121, their composite armor is also now voluminous, so the armor durability has been specified to be more correct for striking angles. Weak zones have been increased due to design features of the gunner sight, so they're going to be a bit more tanky. The Challenger series as well, the Mark II, Mark III, 2 and 2F, their composite armor now consists of voluminous armor as well, and for the Abrams series, apart from the M1A2, so the M1 IPM1 and M1A1, their turret and front hull now consist of voluminous armor. So all of these mean that their armor has just been specified a lot more. We'll have to see how that affects gameplay. Normally when things get volumetric armor, they do get a little bit of a buff just because of how it works. We'll have to see how it works alongside the shell changes. A bug with a missing armor part when the Dorchester 2F modification has been fixed. This is for the Challenger 2-2F, so that is obviously good. And for the STRV-104, the Chieftains, the Challengers, and also the Conqueror, traverse angles of the anti-aircraft machine gun have been clarified, so hopefully it's a little bit more realistic. They've changed the terms as well. The armor has been clarified. The armor characteristics have been adjusted according to the T-72A 1983 report, so we're going to have to see how that affects the vehicle in a positive or negative way. The terms is armor is nice, but it isn't the best. The main thing about the terms is the gun that it has in the form of the ammunition, and obviously the Gen 2 thermals for commander and gunner. The SDRVs, the cheese wedges, the 0, A, and C, a bug that prevented automatic basic distance setting for the laser rangefinder has been fixed. Well, that's good, since that's a mechanic they've added now, where if you laser rangefinder target, then it goes automatically to that range, your gunner sight does, which is obviously very good. If they could do something about its driving on slopes, that would be a little bit better, if I'm honest with you. There's been a bunch of changes to aircraft and also helicopters as well. I would definitely say that Red Skies is much more of an aviation-centric patch, which makes sense. You know, we've had a bunch of patches in the recent few years that have been heavily ground-focused, so now to see the Rank 7 come in for aviation, not a surprise to see that it also gets a big update. The FJ4B VMF 232, now you can actually get 4 AIM-9Bs on it, so that thing became a bit more deadlier. The F3H2, the Demon, actually got AIM-7Cs now, so Sparrows. I think it's the lowest BR vehicle that has Sparrows now, or has semi-active radar homing missiles. The AIM-7Cs aren't very good. But also at the same time, it gives options to players which, you know, maybe playing at that BR, people won't be used to facing them. I still think the AIM-9B loadout is probably better, but it's still nice to see that you now have the option between taking these or the Sidewinders, or even them together on it, since it's obviously historically accurate. The Javelin, if you take the 4 5-streak weapon preset now, you lose the 2 outer 30mm, so pretty much you get 2 30mm and 4 fire streaks if you take that loadout. It's still fine, you know, it doesn't really change that vehicle that much. It's pretty much fine indeed. Then they've actually changed a bunch of different vehicles in the form of their stock configurations, which are actually really good. So the T2, they've actually removed the AIM-9B modification, and now you have the 2 AIM-9B preset available by default, so you actually get default missiles. This would have been nice when grinding the thing, but then again, you know, at least it's a positive change now. The same change has been made for the Mirage 3C and also the Mirage 3E. All of these have their RP or G spent on the modification refunded, so you'll get that back if you spent it. The Lightning FC6 is also similar, so the fire streak modification has been removed, and the 2 fire streaks preset is now available by default, so you get stock missiles on the vehicle. And the SARH missiles, the semi-active radar homing missiles, with lock-on after launch, will have a higher chance of locking onto targets flying across line of sight. So yeah, they've buffed semi-active stuff. Signal-to-noise indicator for the semi-active radar homing missile seekers. Also, the size and color of the arc around the seeker circle indicates signal strength and signal-to-ground clutter ratio. The indication works for the SAR missile with lock-on before launch and also lock-on after launch. So they are refining those mechanics around those, not a surprise, with more of them being added to the game. Separate command beyond or within visual range combat is used for some aircraft radars, so the F4 Phantom radars, for example, to switch between search and air combat maneuvering radar modes. The change radar mode command is used for other purposes, for example, to switch between pulse and pulse Doppler modes. So once again, at high ranks, they are really pushing for some crazy mechanics which will come in the future. For most aircraft of rank 6 and above possessing air-to-air missiles, default missile presets have also been introduced. These presets are available for aircraft with missiles of different types and those able to use more than 2 missiles of each type at a time. So if you have a vehicle which has access 2 missiles and also has access to more than 2 that it carries, then you will get a default preset of missiles. The majority of the defaults is stuff like AIM-9Bs and also stuff such as fire streaks and RB-24s, which is completely fine. But then there are other things such as, you know, the Phantom FGR2s getting access to now AIM-9Ds and the SUU-23A, which is kind of interesting. The FGR2 and F4K as well. Pulse Doppler radar mode in addition to existing pulse mode, velocity search, air combat maneuvering, and automatic target tracking are also available in the pulse Doppler mode, so that's going to be very, very good. But yeah, the fact is we now have stock missiles on a lot of vehicles. This is an incredibly positive change, something which was very much asked for a long time, so very nice to see that fact. There's obviously still some vehicles at the higher echelons that don't get stock missiles, but the majority do now, and this is very positive. They also added an APT round to the NS-45 cannon. You find this on the Yak-9K and also stuff like the Tismar. It penetrates a decent amount, so it gives it a use in ground realistic. The Horton the HO-229V3, the armor-piercing composite rigid tracer shell, has been added to armored target spells, so it'll probably have a little bit more bite in it. And then the King Cobras for the USSR, the 500-pound bomb has been changed to a 250 kilo in the secondary weapons menu. The P-400 gets itself a 500-pound bomb as well. The Aerocobras for the Soviets get the 250 kilo bomb. The Aerocobras for America get the 500-pound bomb, so following what the French one got recently. The Do-217s, the E2 and E4, they now can drop their bombs separately from the 250s, 500s, and 1000s. This is very positive. The Cougar, the F9, F8, the type of the 1,000-pound bomb has been changed from the AN M65 to the LDGP Mark 83, and the F4EJ Phantom, the Japanese one, a bug has been fixed that prevented the selection of belt type for the gun pod, so that's nice. The Farman, the F222.2, an inconsistency between machine gun models and their names has been fixed, lovely. The Draken, the J35D, they fixed a bug due to which the M56D preset could be obtained by researching the M57D modification. That's kind of funny. The K29, they have fixed the gun on it. The 2A42 gun wasn't designated as a secondary one. It is now. The Mi-24P and Mi-24P HFS 80, so the German ones. The additional reload of the 9M11480 gem has been added. Nice. The A4E, the forward guns have been changed from the Mod 3s to the Mod 0s. The Buccaneer S2, the incorrect display of some weapon presets has been corrected. Well, that's nice. For the Phantom, the F4E, they added the AGM-65B Maverick. I've had the pleasure of dealing with A7s with the Maverick. It's really annoying. Hopefully it isn't too crazy. The GP50 bomb, they've changed its weight to 59 kilos and the TNT weight to 29 kilos, so don't think that'll change too much as long as the explosive mass is the same. The Browning M2, the difference in the rate of fire has been fixed. Specifically, the M2 gun mounted on aircraft variant and is now corrected to 750 RPM. The Crusader, the F8U2, the Zuni rocket launcher modification has been corrected. The Q5A, lack of selecting of different countermeasure options has been fixed, so you can actually change that now. The MiG-21F now has an RWS system. This is very positive, giving yourself a little bit more defense. The F7F3, they've actually added a mine to it, so the Tiger Cat now carries a 1,000-pound mine, so look forward to that in ground and naval battles. The Phantom FGR2, they now have AIM-9Gs, so does the FG1, so the British Phantoms have got a bit of a buff there, on top of the Doppler radar changes. The A129CBT, the Italian helicopter, a bug has been fixed due to which flares and IRCM could not be installed simultaneously. Incorrect weapon presets after researching the FNGMP 400 LCC and FNRMP LC modifications have been fixed, so that's good. The helicopter machine guns, their belts have been updated to modern ammunition, and they also increased the G tolerance of AIM-9Ds and AIM-9Gs, making them even more deadly. Also, the J4 and the J2, so the Chinese aircraft, a bug has been fixed due to which it was possible to activate the bomb sight after takeoff when using the OFAB 250 bombs. Really? That's an odd one. The Hornet Mark III, now it has 150 octane fuel, so that thing just became more deadlier. A great bomber hunter, by the way. If you've never played it, highly recommend it. A bug which caused duplication of suspended weaponry presets on the aircraft has been fixed. This is for the Saab B-17B, which is kind of a funny bug. The HE-219A7, a bug where the armor on the right engine differs from the left one by 1 millimeter, has been fixed. Someone put in the wrong value. The B6 is in game, so the B6M1, 2, and 2A. They've also fixed a bug that prevented the protection fuel tanks from being repaired. That is such a weird bug. The Key 45 Otsu and Hey, they now have the module compressor has been fixed, which is good. The P61C1, a visual display of the broken left propeller has been fixed, and the P40F5, they fixed a bug that prevented the protected fuel tanks from being repaired. One thing to know while going through these is a lot of these actually have the report next to it, and it's a highlighted report, and if you click on it, it actually goes to the report that was made on the vehicle on the forums. This is why your input matters. This is why bug reporting is a good idea, because it does work. It actually works, and they do listen, and they do fix stuff in the game. So if you do find stuff which is an issue, make sure to report it. The Mi-28N, the angles of aiming, locking, and tracking the target have been corrected, which is always nice. They've also reworked the armor on the Mi-28N. It's supposed to be more tanky now, so enjoy that in high-tier battles, especially at the start with rocket rushes. The incorrect warning about the cockpit placeholders has been removed for the B6N1, 2, and 2A, and a bug has been fixed for some bombers with an inconsistency of the number of gun stations to the number of gunners. So basically, I'm guessing you won't have the same gunner be able to fire from 3 guns anymore. Localization issues has been resolved for some aircraft modifications, and also the correct bomb load images have been implemented to the suspended weaponry menu for a bunch of French bombers. And then the horizontal stabilizers have been split into 2 parts on the damage model for the US, USSR, German, French, and Chinese aircraft, as well as helicopters. So now if part of a stabilizer is damaged, it'll rip off instead of destroying both parts. Oh, this is nice. So it's actually, you lose a bit of usability, but at the same time, you won't be as affected by it. I like that change. They've also done a few flight model changes as well. So the G8N1, the Key 49s, the P39s, and the P40s, so all of those modifications. The flight model has been updated, engine operating modes have been clarified, and the distribution of fuel tanks has also been corrected. The polars of the wings, fuselage, and propeller blades have been recalculated and updated. The behavior of the aircraft when releasing the mechanism has been clarified. So therefore, we should give that a go. Maybe play some of these, especially the Key 49s. Hopefully they fix that bug on the Key 49s with the front gunner, where he basically just sticks his gun up in the air like he's saluting. Never really understood why he does that, but yeah, that's a problem. And the H8K as well. All the modifications of that, they've changed the flight model for that. A lot of the similar changes, and also they've improved the seaworthiness of it since it is a float plane, and also the takeoff and landing has been simplified for the vehicle, which is always nice to see. Naval, as usual, gets the most changes when it comes to the models and damage models and stuff. There is a million things here when it comes to the naval things, but there are some differences, or there are some ones which actually make a huge difference, such as the sea mines. The lifetime has been increased to 50 minutes, and mine ammo storages have become unreplenishable for all vessels armed with mines, so therefore the ability to drop mines once in a battle. You can't reload them at capture points or anything like that. This is a pretty interesting change. Obviously 50 minutes is a lot longer than what they were before, and I agree with this change. Mines were kind of useless. Now they actually have a purpose, especially on some of the larger maps. Detection distance for mines and torpedoes has also been increased. Enemy torpedo detection range now depends on the vessel's size and height, and approximately is equal to boats. It's 100 to 200 meters. Destroyers is 400 to 500 600, cruisers and battleships are 600 to 700, and enemy mines might be detected at distances approximately half of the above, and also allied torpedoes and mine detection distance is double of the above listed. So basically you have an increased amount of time to be able to deal with stuff, and against stuff like torpedoes, this is a big change. They've also changed certain torpedoes and how much they actually get affected by the distance that they're traveling, so they get slower over distance compared to before. This is a huge thing for the torpedoes, especially for stuff like the Japanese, which rely on them heavily. So yeah, they are going to be a lot less deadly. Now, if the guns did not have time to aim at the aiming points, the player switches weapon group. The guns now continue aiming at the points where the player was aiming. Works with disabled target designation for AI gunners. That's pretty cool. I'm very happy to see that. Ammo storage for all ships with the depth charge stocks have been removed. At the same time, the spare charges remained on racks near the mortars, so you would have been even more busted if you decided to bring depth charges. I still don't understand the point in depth charges. I suppose they're designed right now for just battle pass kills, but they overall don't seem very good. The 100mm on the Chapayev, Sverdlov, and Zheleznyakov, the remotely fused AA shell ZS-56 has been changed to ZS-55. The Maria and Poltava, they've changed the 450mm torpedoes. They've been corrected. I'm sure so many people use them already. The Agano, the fire rate of the 80mm has been corrected to 25 RPM, and two triple-barreled 25mm guns have been removed from the superstructure, so it's a little bit worse against aircraft. The Aquilon, all fire on aerial targets has been corrected, so fire distance and accuracy have been increased. Well, that's nice. The Ognivoy and the Tashkent as well, number of first-order shots has been increased to 24, so you'll have a little bit of a better first stage ammo stowage, meaning that your reloads will be slightly better going forward. For AP shells for the 152mm and 203mm on the Cleveland and the Orleans, the parameters of the frontal resistance have been corrected, which leads the changes in the armor penetration. Nice. The Invincible, the stern torpedo launcher, and torpedo ammo rack have been added. Same with the Dreadnought as well, the HMS Dreadnought. The USS Baltimore, the elevation angles have been corrected for the 40mm, and the Baltimore and also the Helena, they've actually now got a new round. The semi-AP round has been added for the 127, so that should be pretty good as well. A multi-purpose round is always good. The HMS Liverpool, the remote fuse rounds have been added for the 152s and 102s. So you'll be able to use them in different ways now. The Polar, Zara, and Trento, the overestimated spread has been corrected for 203s, so they're going to be way more accurate now. And that Trento at 4.7 is pretty spicy, not going to lie. The Fruns, a bug has been fixed that prevented a full ammo rack of 45mm rounds. The Fruns is such a sad ship, by the way. Just a very, very sad ship. The SMS Von der Tann, the Helgoland, and the Kaiser. One torpedo has been removed from the side torpedo launchers. Watch out, they've become exactly the same. SMS Von der Tann, Helgoland, and Kaiser once again. The spoon tube covers have been where the spoon tube covers are installed. They've also lost a torpedo. The spare torpedoes have been moved to stowages. So once again, the torpedoes, which are hardly ever used at high ranking or 6.0 combat, are now even less used. The PT-109, they removed the unnecessary modification with depth charges, since it doesn't get any, so that's pretty good. Doesn't mean that other modifications are higher in mod costs, which kind of sucks, but, it just kind of is how it is. The next one is probably the biggest change of Naval. The Mines one is obviously impactful, but this one is huge. The damage model of destroyers has been changed and now corresponds to a cruiser form. The hull is divided into compartments responsible for flooding and housing the remaining modules. The crew is located in several internal compartments from where it can be replenished into crew-carrying modules. This has made destroyers insanely tanky in general. So this means that if you're coastal machines, it's nearly, not impossible, but incredibly hard to kill destroyers now, and that is really annoying because there was already quite a big difference between stuff such as coastal machines and destroyers. Now it has just come to a point where you're just food for destroyers, and hopefully at some point they get separate matchmaking, so I never have to see destroyers. I really don't like facing them. They're not very fun, and now they're just even better against me. They've also added in explosive armor breach. It's been implemented for naval battles for all high explosive projectiles with an instant fuse. When the shell detonates on an obstacle, the explosion penetration will be checked, and if it's sufficient for a breach, a gap in the obstacle will be breached, into which gases and a sheaf of debris will rush. This allows optimization of the number of calculations for explosions on the armor and leads to a unified calculation of the force and damage fragments and sectors of their dispersion. HE shells have become more effective in hitting modules and crew inside the ships if they have enough blast penetration. Guess what doesn't really have a ton of blast penetration? Stuff such as coastal machines. So you're even more screwed against destroyers because they do have the better calculations, so therefore you're just going to get boned even more. Really fun. On all large ships, the damage model of open gunnery and units with open shields has been redesigned. They are now more susceptible to damage from close bursts and shrapnel, so, you know, obviously they get hurt more. Unnecessary holes appearing on naval vessels has been removed. Holes will only appear on the hull of the ship. Fair enough. A bug with the probability of detonation of a vessel's own torpedoes has been fixed. The chance of the torpedo will detonate when it's destroyed is now 3 to 7%, depending on the conditions of the destruction. There is also a small chance of detonation when a torpedo is exposed to a severe fire, and if one torpedo detonates, other torpedoes in the explosion zone may detonate under the same conditions. The probability will be checked for each torpedo individually. The force of the torpedo explosion depends on the type of quantity of explosives in its warhead and causes appropriate damage to the vessel in its radius. So a torpedo explosion in the launcher or in the cellar will not necessarily result in an instant destruction of a ship, but it is possible. So is the chain detonation of all torpedoes affected by the explosion. You're going to have to get insanely unlucky for all of your torpedoes to be detonated. Imagine if you have like a 4-stack or a 5-stack of torpedoes. Each of them is 3 to 7% if they go off when, you know, hit. So this just means that you'd have to be insanely unlucky for you to get annihilated by this. So once again, making ships tankier, meaning that, you know, games go a lot slower, and also give you a bigger difference between the types of ships. The Nürnberg, they've changed the armor belts and armor decks on the vehicle itself, so make sure to check that out. The SMS Kaiser, they fixed a bug where the 150mm artillery shells would be unavailable in a battle. The 88mm cannons have also been moved to the anti-aircraft group. The Ikoma, they've changed the armor of the main caliber turrets. The Tone, the 50mm rings have been added to the armor deck above the cellars inside the barbettes. The Krim, Kavkat, and also Kent, they've corrected the excessive roll on turning of the vehicles. That was always fun to see on those big ships. The Southampton, the shape and location of the fuel tanks has been corrected, and also armor thickness and materials have been corrected for barbettes, side armor, and ammo storage and main caliber turrets. That's probably thanks to the Liverpool being added. The Sionen, the location and size of ammunition, fuel tanks, engine room has also been corrected, and also the ammunition elevators and a visual radar model have been added. Well, that's lovely. The Kiyoshima, they've changed the model of the superstructure and the funnel to permit rotation of the first torpedo launches of 360 degrees. Nice. The Kirch, the incorrect weaponry in the vehicle card has been fixed, so now 2 spare torpedoes have been added. The incorrect specifications of the torpedoes mod 1910 has also been fixed. The Liverpool, they've changed the same things that they did on the Southampton. The Brooklyn and Helena, their incorrect armor thickness on the main caliber turrets has been corrected. The Trento, with the size, number, and positioning of fuel tanks, has been specified. The Cleveland, it now has different armor on the rear main caliber turrets. The Hyuga, The gaps in the armor between armor belt and casemates of the 150mm have been removed. The T-22, T-31 and Leipzig, the armor shields for 20mm guns, have been added. The Anton Schmidt, or the Type 1936, the armor for the quad-barreled 20s has been added too, and the PT-6, they fixed a bug that prevented the water pump from repairing. The Type 1936A, the display of the tip of the depth charges on the X-ray mode has been fixed, and the Isuzu, the inconsistency of speed of the info card in battle has also been fixed. The PC-451, displaying ammo stowage and water pumps tips in the X-ray mode, has been corrected. The Zelenzyakov, Sverdlov, Chapayev, HMCS Haida, they had an issue with internal modules outside the hull. This has been solved. The Helena, also the conning tower armor, has been removed in accordance with historical data. They've also changed a bunch of visual things, so a bug with the display of turret rotation when viewed from a distance has been fixed for the Soviet armor boats. Turrets turning on board were displayed in a stowed position, so basically the guns would fire one way, but the guns would look like they're going another way. I don't think this has been fixed. I was playing Naval last night, and that was still happening. And it doesn't just happen with those Soviet armored boats. I'm going to try and submit some bug reports about it. It's really annoying. Sparks for all hit effects have been optimized and unified. The trajectory of falling shells now continues to be highlighted if this option is enabled, then switching weapon groups after a shot, which is actually quite nice, so you'll be able to see the projectile's fall point in arcade more. The visibility of naval shell tracers has been improved as well. The Rosomacha and Yano, a bug has been made a bug that made it impossible to place a decoration on the deck has been fixed. A big change. Game changer. Poltava. The display of the Taupolin cover on the third turret of the main caliber turret has been fixed. My god. We have... Taupolin is fixed. The Flower class, the location of the navigation lights has been fixed. The PT-15 Type 11, display of the antennas when looking on the boat from a distance has been fixed. The Fletcher, a bug with the radar antenna hanging in the air and destroyed, has been fixed. As you can see, there's a ton of visual changes which are all very positive, making them more realistic. The Leipzig, the stern superstructure model has been fixed. Ship's model has been applied in accordance with the state of the ship before wrecking with Prince Eugen in 1944. Lovely. The Hawkins, the layout of the ammo stowage of the main caliber gun has been fixed. This obviously means quite a lot for the machine. I'm sure it'll affect how it gets ammo racked. The Dido and the Arethusa, visual layout of the number of positions of the engines has been changed to reflect historical accuracy. And the Agano, the central superstructure, has been fixed, whatever that means. The Polar, stern anchor missing in the 1941 configuration, has also been removed. Lovely stuff. The turbine and the Aquilone, ship names in gold letters, have been added to the stern. Always nice to see, so you can tell what's shooting at you. The Leander, a bug with a missing deck part of the bow, has been fixed. Lovely stuff. The Aylwin, which is the Farragut DD355, the engine room has been reworked in accordance with blueprints. Lovely. And the Geniere, which is the Italian ship, destroyed bridge casing visuals have been fixed. Nice to see. The Carl Golster and also the Anton Schmidt, excessive rudder blade has been removed, and the SF-40 Lecht, a bug with the misallocation of ammo stowage to guns near where they are located, has been corrected. Previously, some guns were replenished from the stowage located on the opposite side. Also, the Kako, the depth charges have been removed from the X-ray mode on modifications without them. Nice to see. The Hugo, the transcription of the name and number has been corrected. Ship name has been added to the stern, and the effect of the shell blast in the air has also been reworked. So that's lovely to see. Also, the Comandante Medagli d'Oro, the ship's name has been fixed. Instead of the series Comandante Medagli d'Oro, the ship has received the name Comandante Magattini. So there you go. They've also changed a bunch of different ship names. Basically, what they've done is they've actually named their ships for their specific ships they're based on, instead of the type of ship. To give you some examples, instead of just the Clemson DD336, it's now the USS Litchfield, or the Battle D14 is the HMS Armada. I think this is very good. I'm glad that they've done this. It gives gives them a little bit more of personality, I suppose, and also a good history for people to have a look at. They've also desynchronization of the aiming marker from the crosshair and the binoculars when aiming on move has been fixed as well. Crew members' roles, different from their main, have been added to the X-ray mode. Lovely to see. The delay for cannon elevation guidance has been removed in naval battles. Nice. So now you'll get your guns on target quicker. Default shortcuts for the keyboard for the ranging shot has also been added, so it's left control plus LMB. I use my one of my mouse buttons, which works pretty well. So yeah, that's all of the naval changes. Obviously there are some mechanics as well on top of it, which we'll talk about later, but that's the main model and also bug fixes and changes to the vehicles themselves. There's also been a bunch of economy and research changes. These are based around mainly rank 7 being added for aviation, and also the max BR going to 11.0 for aviation and ground. The BRs or the vehicles that have gone up to 11.0 in aviation are the F4E Phantom 2, the MiG-21 BIS, the Phantom FGR2, the Phantom FG1, the F4EJ Phantom 2, and also the Mirage 3E. So these are probably the ones which were performing the best. They've also changed a bunch of vehicles ranks. So the vehicles which have gone from rank 6 to rank 7 are the F4E Phantom 2, the A7D, MiG-21MF, MiG-21 SMT, the BIS as well, the Su-17 M2, the Phantom FGR2, FG1, the Harrier not the Harrier GR1, the F4EJ Phantom 2 is a rank 7 as well, the F104G, the F5A, the Mirage 3C and D, the J35D has also gone up, and the F4F early. Then also, there are a few vehicles that have moved from rank 5 to 6. These include the Yak-38, the Harrier GR1, the AV-8A as well, and the Bf-109G2 for Italy has actually been moved to rank 4, so you can actually use that when it comes to researching rank 5 aircraft, which is really nice. Not a surprise to see this stuff. I actually thought a few other premiums were going to get moved up. Kind of weird to see the Shenyang F5 not moved up to rank 6, but maybe they're going to add some more premiums for other nations such as China pretty soon. But yeah, I would have expected a few more of the premiums to go up. Also, their prices, the ones that have gone up, have slightly gone up, so not a surprise to that, but this is the general trend that we see when a new rank is added to the game. They changed the cost of the Meteor F Mark 8 Reaper. It's gone up by about 300 GE. The Harrier GR1 has also gone up by about 180 GE. The G91R4 for the Italians they've actually brought back, and now it's available for purchase with GE. They've grouped the two Chinese Stuarts. And also, the M24 for China has been moved to the position after the group of these Stuarts as well. And the Chiha Kai has been moved to rank 2, so now you can use it for decals. The M4A4 Chinese edition and also the M4A1 at 75. These have been moved to the lineup after the T3443. This is probably just because of BR changes. The T3485 Guy has been moved to rank 4, and the required number of vehicles to unlock the next rank in the Chinese research tree for ground has been changed. Obviously, this makes sense because they've moved around a bunch of ranks for certain vehicles. They've also moved the Panzer IV-G in the German tech tree to rank 2, so RIP it being used for dailies and specials. And also, once again, for ground, as we said, the BRs have been expanded to 11.0. They haven't expanded the ranks, just the BRs. So a bunch of 10.7s have been moved up to 11.0, probably the best performing ones. So the ones that have been moved up are the Challenger 22F, the Leclercs, the Leopard 2A5 and 2A6, the STRV 122A, the 122B PLSS, the Ariete PSO, the Type 90 and 90B, and also the M1A2, surprisingly. Vehicles that have also gone up in BR, the T72B3, T80U and T90A, they've all gone from 10.3 to 10.7, and the ZTZ99 has also gone up to 10.7. So that has change that. The SGB Grey Fox and Fairmile, they've switched places in the tech tree, obviously because of recent BR changes, and the USS Northampton has been moved to rank 4. They've also changed its research cost from 610,000 SL to 360. They also changed, I believe, its RP cost as well on the dev server or even before it, so therefore it's easier to get, which is nice. So overall, a new rank has come to the game in aviation. This means that efficiencies have changed when it comes to using specific vehicles, but as long as you research rank 7 with rank 6 vehicles, you'll research at least 100% efficiency, so you won't have to worry about it too much. Hopefully we see research reductions in the future because of these changes. There's also a bunch of cool customization stuff that has been added, so the MERDC camouflage schemes for the late US ground vehicles have been updated. They look really nice. And then the new MERTC, as I'll call it, the Red Desert and Summer variant or Verdant camouflage schemes have been added for late US ground vehicles. Once again, give them a look. They look really, really nice. The new MHN and MAN 3-color camouflage schemes have been added for German ground vehicles, which are lovely. The winter single-color camouflage for the USSR, Germany, and USA have been updated. Hopefully it looks a bit better than the last one, which just looked like a bunch of random paint strokes. The deforming paint schemes for the late Swedish tanks have been updated. Once again, hopefully they look nice. The Tiger H1 has actually got an awesome camo as well that I showed on the dev server. It now has a one-color grey camouflage that you can buy with GE. It's a really nice camo, unique to the Tiger H1, so definitely worth having a look at. The Finnish pattern set for the new SAM system for Sweden has been added, and the new award for ground vehicles has been added, the Firefighter one, which is granted to firefighting assistance of an ally, which is of course a new game mechanic, which we'll get into in that section. But basically what happens is now, if an ally is out of FPE or doesn't have FPE, if they get set on fire, you're able to use your FPE to put them out if you're in a light vehicle. And if you're in a squadron with your ally, you are able to use it on any vehicles. And that's pretty cool. I'm glad they've added it. It's a really nice little mechanic. Once again, promoting teamwork. This is something which is always good in War Thunder. They've changed a few interface things as well, so the vehicle and mission type filter has been added to the mission creation in custom battles, so you can now much more easily set up what vehicles, or basically you can set up which maps have available to you, which type of vehicles, so it'll be easier to spawn in stuff like helicopters and stuff, which is really nice. Displaying of the heading angle from the attack direction has been added to the protection analysis view in the hangar. The fact that they are constantly updating the protection analysis is really nice. It's a feature which is heavily undervalued in the game and incredibly good. In protection analysis also, you may also use exact rounds from belts of automatic cannons now, so therefore you can see which ones are doing the most damage. All of these are very positive, lovely to see them. There's been some big game mechanic changes as well, so basically they've added the firefighting assistance to ground battles. The ability to extinguish fires for all allies is available for light tanks, and by playing in a squad you can help with it for any squad members regardless of the player's vehicle, so very similar to how repairs work. In order to assist, the ally must not be able to fight the fire themselves, and no FPE module on the vehicle or is out of supply, and by extinguishing fire the player will spend one of their own FPE units, so pretty much sacrificing your FPE to save an ally. I like this, as I said before. Encouraging teamwork is always something that should be rewarded in War Thunder, and this is something that is here. They've also added the mechanics for commander's sights to a ton of rank 4 to 7 vehicles, so you can have a look at the list yourself. It's pretty much it's a ton of them. I'm not going to read them all out, but yeah, the commander's sights have been added, and also the probably more interesting one, the mechanics of using duplicate fire controls. So simulation of the commander's use of redundant controls and ocular gunner sight periscope by commander finder has been added for some ground vehicles of ranks 5 to 7. In case of loss of consciousness, a gunner will retain fire control if this feature is in operation on the tank and the commander is also alive. So basically, it gives these vehicles a lot more survivability. It means if you knock the gunner out of these vehicles, they can still shoot back. So you're going to have to learn which vehicles have this and which don't, or change the way that you fight vehicles, trying to aim for ammo instead of crew. It's a big change, and probably one of the biggest ones we've seen in ground for a while, and it's definitely going to shape up the meta and how people kill other vehicles. The mechanics of range correction in the sight based on range measurement results with laser rangefinder has been added to ground RB. Basically, if you have a laser rangefinder and you use it to range find, then the gunner optic will automatically target the distance that you have range found at. So that's basically how it works. So just made the whole thing a little bit easier when it comes to doing that stuff. So yeah, I disagree with the change. I think it takes away some of the skill out of the game at higher echelons, but c'est la vie. We'll have to see how it is. Torpedo speed multiplier in AB has been changed from a constant equal to 3 to a piecewise linear dependence on the travel distance. So this is what I was talking about before. Up to 4 kilometers, the multiplier is 3. From 4 to 8 kilometers, the multiplier drops linearly from 3 to 1. And over 8 kilometers, the multiplier is 1. So basically over distance, the torpedoes get slower and slower and slower. And also the detection distances are increased. So it's going to be a lot harder to die to torpedoes, especially stuff like lawn lancers, if you're paying attention. And also track vehicles are now more controllable on turning and pivoting. Inertia in the direction of the turn has been reduced. The turn ends faster when the turn control is released. So that's pretty nice. Overall, the game mechanics seem to be positive right now. We'll have to see how they affect the meta. They normally have the biggest impact because they affect the most vehicles. So we'll have to see what goes on. It wouldn't be a War Thunder major update with a bunch of graphical changes as well. So the thermal vision render has been improved. The picture looks more natural when using red or green channels now, which is pretty nice. They also upgraded the nuclear blast effect, which we saw in the dev blog a while back. On maximum and movie modes, you may now see blast waves destroying buildings and environments. Blast wave details for the graphic modes have been reduced. So this is obviously because, you know, they don't want to annihilate people's PCs. I like this. It's really nice. They've also put in new hit effects for 206 to 480mm shells, which I'm sure will look lovely. The new effects for artillery explosions in ground battles has also been added. I've seen that. They look pretty nice. Very, very hectic, I'll say. New effects when hitting red bricks have been added. Interesting. Visual shot effect has been hidden in the naval vessel's sight to improve visibility. Thank God, so you can actually see where you're firing. The FV4005, the visual shot effect, has been changed once again. It looked kind of ridiculous before. Hopefully it looks a bit more realistic now. The new shooting effect type has been added for the 40mm anti-aircraft gun. Gonna have to check that out, since there's a lot of 40s on pretty much everything. The time for smoke disappearing and its appearance when aircraft bombs explode have been adjusted. Interesting. We'll have to see how that affects everything. Effects of fire and smoke on the ground have been reworked and improved. Well, once again, that doesn't give us too much. Erroneous night glow on some effects has been removed. Good. The problem with low FPS while flying behind a burning aircraft has been fixed. That's good, because even my rig was struggling with that. All smoke trail effects on missiles have been changed, and all aircraft fire effects have been changed. The fire effects look really nice, they look beautiful, and the smoke trail effects are also a lot nicer. It just looks absolutely beautiful now. Sparks for all hit effects have been optimized and unified. Once again, looks lovely. Effect of bursting shells in the air has been updated. It's really nice, like their effects are really cool now. The trajectory of falling shells continues to be highlighted when switching weapon groups after the shot. To do this, you need to enable a corresponding option in the setting. We talked about that earlier. And the visibility of naval shell tracers has been improved. They've basically just made them brighter and also bigger so you can track your shells better. This is very positive, since sometimes it's very hard to see where you're actually shooting. I'm very, very happy with this change. Overall, incredibly positive graphical changes. They've also changed a bunch of sound stuff as well, so there's a ton of stuff which is going on with that. So a sound of all ground vehicle guns except for machine guns have been reworked for third person and gunner view, where with all allied and enemy vehicles, powder blast is emphasized, while parts of metallic sounds have been removed. I think this is good. It wasn't very nice just hearing clunks constantly, so this should sound more of like an explosion. Aircraft firing sounds have been improved. All shots now have increased density at low frequencies. It does sound a lot better. New sounds of the vehicle tracks have been added for ground vehicles produced in the 80s and later. There are 4 types in total: tracks for main battle tanks, tracks for light tanks, for amphibians, and also for infantry fighting vehicles, so we'll have to see what they sound like. Unique vehicle track sounds have been added for all enemy and allied ground vehicles in accordance with the sounds of the player's vehicles. So now it'll be easier to tell what's coming. The authentic track sounds for the STR-V103 series have been introduced. Beautiful stuff. Also the ATGM tow system, they now have a new sound for that. The sound of a launching missile's navigation system before launching, and the sound of the missile firing itself, which is really awesome. A new mechanism for the sound of ground vehicles falling onto the suspension has been added. The system of managing the sound events of explosions has been improved so that an excess of explosions doesn't cause the loss of some important sound effects such as enemy engines and track sounds, and the explosion sounds has been also reworked so now that they fade out more clearly with distance to a listener and do not create local oversaturated areas that could potentially begin to overload the game sound mix in the low frequency area or suppress the overall sound level. They've also changed the global reverb system. It's been redesigned. It now improves. It's improved on the positioning of sound events and to make the game sound mix cleaner. The internal game sound channel routing has also been redesigned for more correct sound reproduction on multi-channel speaker systems. An overload of the game sounds on the consoles during an intensive battle and shots from the main caliber cannons on ships has been fixed. Thank God, so it's not blowing off your ears. The sound of rapid-fire anti-aircraft guns that was disappearing on consoles has been fixed. This was an issue I had a while back. Looks like they finally fixed it for consoles as well. And the sound design of several areas of Subverse 13 has been created in order to emphasize the atmosphere and mood of the location. Thank God, so you can actually tell where people are instead of just wandering around blindly. The only issue I've had with sound so far in the update is when an aircraft explodes on the ground. It is incredibly loud for some reason. Everything else, pretty good so far. I would highly recommend giving the tow systems a go. Just listen to the sound. They make a beautiful squeak now. It's really lovely. They've also put a lot of time into changes and fixes for VR devices, so if you're interested in that stuff, it's really cool. The game now utilizes OpenXR. VR support has been reworked for it. The depth perception has been improved. Visual clarity has also been improved compared to the previous implementation of the same supersampling levels. This allows players to achieve similar quality at lower supersampling levels. The overall image quality of VR has been improved. TAA is now supported there, and so is DLSS. There are now 3 options for in-game flat screen mirror windows. Eyes, left or right eye only as well. Zoom axis now works across all cameras in VR, not just in cockpit view. The Oculus ASW should now produce better results. The GUI has been adjusted to require less head movement in VR to reach corner elements, and double vision and or artifacts around close objects have also been fixed. Incorrect lighting and shadowing of a fuselage when viewed from the cockpit has also been fixed, and fighter pilot tutorial not being completable in VR has been fixed as well. So some wonderful VR changes, and that brings us to the end of the changelog. A ton of of changes overall in this update, and I've got to say, so far my experiences have been incredibly positive with the update. Very happy to see a lot of them, and hopefully going forward this is once again a good trend for War Thunder. The only issues I've had so far is a few sound issues with aircraft exploding and also bombs overpressuring everything on the ground. Everything apart from that has been very good. We'll have to see how stuff such as top tip meta shapes up. I'm sure there'll be a lot of discussion on that over the next few weeks, but overall the major changes to the game, very, very nice to see. I hope you all have a wonderful day, and I'll see you next time. I'd like to thank BRFC, Swollen Ostrich, Teddy, John Ryman, Universe A, Conte Baraka, Eugens Terry, Ambrosius McClellan, Daniel Stanton, Martinez, B. Young, Lafouche, Barine, and Samuel Schlick for supporting the channel.